Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, and that means you are about to listen to the Town of Halifax Planning Board meeting for Thursday, November 16th, 2023. It's also incumbent upon me to mention that this meeting is being recorded by, well, it's going to be recorded and viewable on YouTube, and I believe Community Access Television as well. To start with tonight, I want to announce, because it was late in the day, in regards to the first hearing we have scheduled regarding 314 Plymouth Street, they have asked for an extension and to be put on the agenda for December 7th, which is our next regularly scheduled meeting. So that hearing will not be opening tonight. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the second hearing that we have scheduled this evening, which has to do with the zoning bylaw and zoning map amendments.
Would you like a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
Yeah, we can do that.
Oh, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that, little protocol issue here. I'm going to ask you all to bear with me because I'm going to read the amendment into the minutes. It's a little lengthy. I will attempt to do it without stumbling too much.
Do you want to open the hearing first?
Oh, yeah, good point. Someone asked, good thing people are looking out for me. We need to open the hearing. I'm trying to remember, do we need a motion?
Notice of public hearing. The Halifax Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 16th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Board of Selectmen's, well, it's going to be here, Board of Selectmen's meeting room at Halifax Town Hall, 499 Plymouth Street, Halifax, Massachusetts, on proposed zoning bylaw and zoning map amendments to create a new senior housing overlay district and apply it to the Monpont Street properties in Halifax, Massachusetts, identified as 265 Monpont Street and 266 Monpont Street. The text and maps comprising the proposed zoning bylaw and zoning map amendments for the senior housing overlay district and its application to the Monpont Street properties, Halifax, Mass, identified as 265 Monpont Street and 266 Monpont Street, may be inspected at the office of the Town Administrator, Halifax Town Hall, 499 Plymouth Street, Halifax, Mass. Halifax Planning Board. Motion to open the hearing.
So moved. Move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I am now going to read the motion. To see if the town will vote to amend the Code of the Town of Halifax, Chapter 167-4, zoning enumeration of districts and the zoning map as follows. 1. By amending Section 167-4, enumeration of districts, by adding a new subsection H as follows. H, SHO, Senior Housing Overlay District. 1. Purpose, to accommodate as of right senior housing development in appropriate areas of the town of Halifax. The Senior Housing Overlay District allows for multifamily housing for persons 55 years of age or older to be developed on lots located entirely within the Senior Housing Overlay District and establishes bulk and dimensional standards that encourage site plans that will meet the needs of our senior population effectively. 2. Overlay District. The Senior Housing Overlay District is an overlay district that does not replace but is superimposed over the underlying zoning district. The provisions of this section shall apply only to senior housing development, as defined herein, on lots located entirely within the Senior Housing Overlay District. All requirements of the underlying zoning district shall remain in full force and effect, except as specifically superseded herein. In the event of any conflict between this subsection and any other provision of this zoning chapter, the provisions of this subsection shall prevail. The location and boundaries of the Senior Housing Overlay District are shown on a map entitled Zoning Map of Halifax, Massachusetts, dated March 14, 1966, as amended on file in the office of the town clerk. 3. Establishment. Location. Establishment of a senior housing development as defined herein within the senior housing overlay district shall require not less than 1/50 acres of contiguous lot area, 150 feet of contiguous frontage, and location entirely within the commercial and business district. 4, senior housing development. For the purposes of this subsection, senior housing development means a building with 3 or more residential dwelling units or 2 or more buildings on the same lot with more than 1 residential dwelling unit in each building, intended and operated for occupancy by persons 55 years of age or older. For the purpose of this subsection, housing intended and operated for occupancy by persons 55 years of age or older shall comply with the provisions set forth in 42 U.S.C. 3601 et S. Sec. Senior housing development does not include a nursing home, rest home, or convalescent home. 5, requirements. Senior housing development shall be permitted as of right in the senior housing overlay district, subject only to site plan requirements of section 167-28 and the following. A, the specific use requirements of section 167(7)(d)(2) do not apply. Senior housing development shall be subject to the following specific use requirements. 1, the complete parcel must be under the ownership of the developer before the building permit is granted. Design guidelines. The shapes, scale, location, and materials of all buildings shall be consistent with New England-style architecture and in general utilize horizontal siding, pitched roofs, and traditional New England colors. Lighting fixtures shall be residential in scale, and streets shall be bordered by street trees wherever practical. 3, all utilities in a senior housing development shall be installed underground. B, the dimensional and density regulations of 167.10, 167.11, and 167.12 do not apply. Senior housing development shall be subject to the following dimensional and density requirements. 1, senior housing development shall be limited to a maximum density of 20 dwellings per acre. 2, more than 1 residential building and more than 1 accessory building are permitted on a single lot provided the bulk and dimensional requirements of this subsection 5 are met. 3, the minimum parcel size shall be 1/50 acres. The maximum building height shall be 3 stories and 50 feet as measured from average finished grade. 5, setbacks, primary buildings. The minimum front setback shall be 20 feet. The minimum side yard shall be 25 feet. The minimum rear yard shall be 15 feet, and there shall be at least 40 feet between any 2 primary buildings. 6, setbacks, accessory buildings and garages. The minimum front setback shall be 20 feet. The minimum side yard shall be 5 feet. The minimum rear yard shall be 5 feet, and there shall be at least 10 feet between any accessory building or garage and any primary building, and at least 10 feet between any 2 accessory buildings or garages. 7, minimum residential floor area. No senior housing development, whether condominium or rental, shall be erected, reconstructed, remodeled, or altered so that the lowest level, i.e. ground floor or equivalent of living space per dwelling unit, i.e. in a unit, contains less than 750 square feet. 8, fire protection in condominium developments. Every senior housing development, whether condominium or rental, shall install an automatic fire detection system in each building. This system shall not include the smoke detection system unless so directed by the State Building Code or Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 148, subsection 26C. The automatic fire detection system shall be wired into the fire station, and the alarm notification system shall be compatible to the present alarm notification system. All expenses of the installation, including the tie-in at the fire station, shall be borne by the developer. The system shall be approved by the fire chief before any construction is started on the site. The maintenance of the system shall be the responsibility of the owner or condominium association, if any. B, every senior housing development, whether condominium or rental, shall have a hydrant system which is capable of applying the required fire flow plus 50%. The water main shall not be less than 8 inches in diameter. All hydrants shall be set at 500 feet apart within the development. C, every senior housing development, whether condominium or rental, shall supply adequate space in front of each building for fire apparatus to approach the buildings as determined by the Town of Halifax Fire Department. C, The off-street parking requirements of Section 167-14B shall not apply. Senior housing development shall provide 2 spaces of off-street parking per dwelling unit. Parking may be provided either in garages attached to the residential building served thereby, in detached freestanding structures, or as paved surface parking spaces, provided that any such parking is located not more than 250 feet from the residential building served thereby, and may be provided pursuant to fee simple or easement interest on a lot abutting or directly across the street on the lot on which the residential building served thereby is located. Parking spaces shall be a minimum of 9 feet by 18 feet. 2, amending the zoning map by changing the following parcel from AR residential to District B commercial and business district and adding the senior housing overlay district. A certain parcel of land with the buildings thereon situated in the town of Halifax, Plymouth County, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, on the easterly side of Montponset Street, Route 58, bounded and described as follows. Beginning at a point on the easterly side of Montponset Street, said point being the southwest corner of the premises herein described, said point being marked by a drill hole in a concrete bound, thence north 9 degrees 13 minutes 57 west, by said easterly side of Montponset Street, a distance of 565 and 29/100 feet to a point there, thence north 84 degrees 24 minutes 38 degrees east, by land now or formerly of Halifax Meadows condominiums, a distance of 762 and 23/100 feet to a point near a drill hole in a concrete bound, said bound being out south 46 degrees 34 minutes 22 west at a distance of 0 feet and 32/100 feet thence. South 15 degrees 44 minutes 56 east, again by land north formerly of the Halifax Meadows condominiums, a distance of 793 and 71/100 feet to a point thence. Southerly 48 degrees 21 2 west by land of Halifax Housing Authority, a distance of 426 and 90/100 feet to a point thence. North 24314 east, again by land of now or formerly of Halifax Housing Authority, a distance of 328 and 98/100 feet to a point thence. Northerly 81 degrees 29:17 west, again by land now or formerly of Halifax Housing Authority, a distance of 586 and 42/100 feet to a point on the easterly side of Montponset Street, said point being the point of beginning. As shown on the certain plan of land 265 Montponset Street in Halifax, Plymouth County, Massachusetts, prepared by JDE Civil and dated November 1st, 2023, a reduced size copy of which is attached hereto at Exhibit A, said parcel of land containing approximately 588,554 square feet, or 13.511 acres in area. 3, by amending the zoning map by adding to the senior housing overlay district the parcels shown on the Halifax Board of Assessors documents as map 63, parcel 8A, 266 Montponset Street. 4, by finding that the parcels proposed to be located within the senior housing overlay district comprise one or more eligible locations as defined by general laws, Chapter 40A, Section 1A, and accordingly that the amendments set forth in items 1, 2, and 3 above are eligible for passage by a simple majority of town meeting under general laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5. That's it.
I feel like I should clap for you.
Try to get through that as quickly as possible. And now we're going to turn it over to the developer and let him take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Lloyd Geisinger. I'm the president of Thorndike Development. I'm here with Matt Lawler, our attorney from Robertson & Cole, and Michael Devon from my office, who's working with me on this. Thank you for taking the time to read that into the record. What I would like to do is to take a few minutes and describe the project itself to create context both for the board and any members of the audience that are not familiar with it. And then I will turn the presentation over to Matt, who will give a little more substance to the bylaw itself and answer whatever questions you might have about the bylaw specifically. I would also like to mention that there is a companion document, a very important companion document to the draft, the bylaw proposal, and that is a master development agreement that that we have been working with the select board to finalize. And that master development agreement locks us in to the specific plans and describes the mitigation measures that have been agreed to, so that in combination with the zoning bylaw, as you have just read it into the record, there is a document that says that if town meeting so chooses to approve the bylaws, that the specific plans that you'll see tonight are the plans that would get built. With that as an introduction, I apologize. I will try and stand to the side here. The slide is just a little bit more so most of the audience can see it as well. I'd suggest, if you're interested, maybe move to a few of the other seats if you are having a hard time seeing the documents. As described, there are two parcels of land that are being discussed tonight. 265 Mont Ponce, which is a much larger parcel, and 266, which is across the street, and a much smaller parcel. Thorndike Development owns both parcels of land. We purchased them a little over a year ago. As plans have evolved in conversations with the select board, with Cody, we have moved away from an apartment proposal and towards a senior condominium proposal in combination with a proposed senior center. When Cody suggested that the senior center might be a good fit, we agreed entirely, because obviously if we're building a senior housing community, they would benefit greatly from it. So it seemed like a good connection. As part of the plan, we would be deeding 2 parcels of land to the town at no charge, $10. The larger parcel, which is just under 2 acres, which would be the site of the proposed senior center. And the image of the senior center is shown on the other board here on the right that we are proposing, as well as a second smaller parcel that would be the home of 4 new pickleball courts. Thorndike has agreed, as part of the master development agreement, to build those pickleball courts at no charge to the town, deed the land and the courts to the town for the town's general population use. The condominium development as proposed consists of 3 buildings, 2 buildings on the larger site here, 1 building across the street. All 3 buildings are 3 stories high with elevators in them. These are all for senior condominiums targeting adults over the age of 55. There would be no school-aged children permitted to reside there permanently. We have been building housing for seniors for decades, and we have always included in the condominium documents, which is allowed under federal law, that no school-aged children can reside. They can visit, but they can't reside permanently, which of course is often a very important factor in considering the benefits and the costs from a community like this. Across the street, we have 1 building on the existing site. This one's a little bit smaller at 30 condominiums as opposed to 36. So these 3-story buildings each have 12 condominiums on each floor for a total of 36. The one across the street, a little bit smaller. And just to give you a visual on the building itself, this is a image of the building that we would expect to build. Very New England in style, horizontal siding, clapboard type siding, pitched roofs, broken down into somewhat smaller components to break down the scale of it. We've built buildings very similar to this with great success in the past. And then over on my right, an image of the senior center. We have actually prepared schematic plans for the town and obviously created a three-dimensional rendering. This building that rendering is extremely accurate as to what we would expect to build. I should mention that the commitment that Thorndike has made in connection with this, that is part of the master development agreement, is that Thorndike, as it builds out the first 2 buildings of the 3, will make up to $2.6 million in mitigation payments to the town. That money is intended to be combined with $1.2 million of the $1.7 million that was previously approved at town meeting for the construction of the senior center. And collectively, those dollars will be sufficient to build the building and the parking lot shown here. We have built a building almost identical to that building down at a project called Sawyer's Reach in Plymouth at the back of the Colony Place community. If you would like to take a drive down there sometime and drive into Sawyer's Reach, you'll see the clubhouse there. It is extremely similar to the building here. And we just completed that a year ago. So we have a high degree of confidence that we know what these buildings will cost. We have asked, and as part of the master development agreement, we would hope to have the opportunity to be a bidder to build the senior center. This, of course, would be subject to prevailing wage laws and open procurement. No guarantees that we would be the winning bidder, but we have a construction company with qualified bidders, and we would expect to submit a bid. We obviously have a high vested interest in seeing this done extremely well. It will be a very important amenity for our residents. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt to go through the bylaw, and then, of course, we're available to answer questions.
So I'm actually going to go from this mic, which I'll be saying. Great. So again, Matt Lawler with Robinson & Cole, counsel to Thorndike. I think I had been prepared to sort of walk through the bylaw, but I think we've heard the bylaw read by the chair very sort of accurately. So I think I would just emphasize a couple of points about the bylaw, and then happy to take questions from the board. So first, just to emphasize, this is an overlay proposal. So the provisions that we proposed go into the regular zoning bylaw. They sit within the general zoning bylaw. They are applied only to these two parcels as proposed in the map amendments, but they're available for the town to apply to other parcels in town that meet the criteria for location and are also within the commercial business district. So it becomes something that if the town feels that this project has gone well, can use again for similar projects in different parts of town that are zoned similarly. So that's just one thing to emphasize. So it's a generally applicable overlay. It's only being applied to two parcels pursuant to the map amendments here. Wanted to emphasize that the use that's proposed for the senior development is an as-of-right use, but it's subject to site plan review. So the regular site plan review that you currently have in your zoning bylaw would be a process that this project or any project in the overlay district would have to go through. So you are not giving a project approval for this project tonight. That would come later after the zoning has been adopted and this project has been brought forward for site plan review by this board. So just want to emphasize that. So that is something that is in the future still post-town meeting vote. The project would have to prepare a site plan application, present it to the board, go through site plan review, and then get that approval. And then finally, I'll just note the last item on the agenda, on the proposed amendments, was that these two parcels be considered eligible locations under General Laws Chapter 48, Section 5. So a couple of amendments were made to Section 5 a few years ago by the General Court, by the legislature, to allow for certain kinds of zoning amendments to be adopted by simple majority vote as opposed to two-thirds majority vote. So typically, zoning amendments require a two-thirds majority vote at a town meeting. Legislature decided that there were some things they wanted to promote through simple majority vote, and one of them is multifamily development like this at eligible locations. And eligible locations generally are places that are near existing development, and so these two sites, these two parcels, we think, and apparently the state agrees, at least as an advisory matter, these are eligible locations for that kind of an application. So there's a request for this board to go ahead and recommend, along with recommending hopefully approval of the bylaw amendments and the map amendments, that these be considered eligible locations and therefore eligible for a majority vote at town meeting next month. So just wanted to clarify that. And I think I will stop there. I don't think we want to take too much time. I think getting to questions might be the best way to sort of move things forward. So I will stop there, and I guess Lloyd, I'll field questions however you want to do it, or Lloyd can come up depending on what you guys are asking.
We'll open it up to questions from the audience, and then we'll comment.
Okay, great.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Mayor, Rob, you strong to go over there, stay with that.
Or do you want to grab, there's a mic.
I don't really need a microphone. Mary Gravenese, 98 Clyde Bosworth Road. So I have a few, actually a lot of questions. One is this, if this is state specific requirements for over 55, who will monitor that and make sure that is what is happening here, as far as the purchasing and living there.
Yep, so I'm just gonna grab my notes.
That's okay. My notes are bigger than yours.
Can I use this?
Sure.
Okay. So the condominium documents that will be put in place, which are recorded at the registry, will require that the residents be over 55. It would be a violation of the documents for anyone that doesn't qualify to purchase a home. We've been building these types of communities for 30 years. The trustees tend to be extremely rigorous, but ultimately it is it's part of the documents that are recorded, and that's how it's policed.
So is it Thorndike that sells the apartments to the people, or do you have a property management company that handles that after it's built?
No, we only are responsible for selling the condominiums the first time. After that, these are not apartments, these are condominiums that would be owned by the individual occupants. If someone who lives in a particular condominium wants to move, they would put their home up for sale, just as anyone in a single-family home would put their home up for sale.
Okay, so what happens if you do not sell all of these units to over 55 people, because they are between $400,000 and $500,000, which is, in this town, it's a little hefty for some senior citizens. What happens if you have a percentage that are left unsold?
We have to lower the price. We have no choice. Once the condominium documents are recorded, we would be breaking the law. It would be the same as any illegal act. And I've been doing this 40 years, and we've finished every community we've ever started.
Okay, and the units that are next to the liquor store on this side of 58, are they going to be different because it's a smaller building than the one across the street?
No, they'll be the same, there'll just be less of them.
Okay. When you say that the generally applicable overlay for other places in town, is that a foresight for something coming? Because we've all had a very lot of, everyone knows there's discussion on social media within the town about the property over by the railroad tracks that one of the members on this board owns. And that it is very clear that in my request, I would request.
I want to clarify something. Who owns the
Mr.
property?
Murray is what has been told, that he owns a piece of property near the railroad tracks where Mr. Thorndike is also looking to build 750 condos or low-income apartments.
I don't own that property by the train station.
You don't own any property over there at all?
Across the street.
That was what was told, is that Thorndike was looking at purchasing that to build additional 750
That's
units.
news to me. I've never talked to Thorndike about buying my residential property that my family's on. No, I never have. There's land across the street, I've heard. That's what they talked about before at a selectmen's meeting.
The former garden.
That the former gardens by the train station, that you're in contact with the owners and they're willing to do something with you. That's what I remember you saying at the selectmen's meeting. Has nothing to do with me. I've never talked to anybody from Thorndike or...
Okay, well, I'm just saying, word travels, and that's what everybody's concerned about, is that there is a piece of property.
No, that's wrong.
So my
why I wanna
concern is
clear
this
it up.
overlay, does it apply to any other property in town? Does it make it easier for somebody else to come in and say, we're going to apply this to another piece of property as well? Because we don't need multi-family units in this town. We can't, it's silly. We don't need it, we don't want it. The people in the town have been very specific. So I'm asking you the overlay that can apply to other places, which is what he said, what other places would that apply to?
Can I answer the question?
Yes.
So the way the overlay is structured is it only applies to this particular piece of land. If the town in the future, if town meeting in the future wanted to consider another parcel of land for another development, it would need to vote to approve it. There's nothing permitted other than this land, assuming that town meeting approves it. The zoning that would be created could be used again if town meeting chose to use it. If town meeting doesn't choose to use it, it is not possible for a developer to take advantage of the zoning, come to this board or any other board in town and seek approvals. It's impossible. They would have to bring it before town meeting town meeting would need to vote to
Excuse
put
me.
it in place.
This is a public meeting.
Anything.
No whispering.
Mind your business.
No, I'm not. It's a public meeting. If you have
Yeah,
something
I'm
to say,
talking to
don't
Mr.
whisper.
Milliers.
I know. That's the
I have to
point.
check with you.
I'm sorry, was it directed about what I was
Let's get
asking?
back
I'm
on
sorry.
track here.
I was just trying to ask a question. I'm just trying to, a lot of people are afraid to say what's happening, and I'm just telling you, I'm just throwing it all out there.
Okay,
That's all.
Can I
I'm just
answer the
throwing it out there.
your
Sure.
second point? We did take a look at a piece of land adjacent to the train station.
Yes.
And we made a determination, we were not looking at it in consideration of this zoning or this change. We were looking at it as a possible site to build apartments. We concluded that it was not an appropriate site for any kind of development. It was never going to be remotely 750 units.
Okay.
But we spent about a half a day looking at the land, concluded that there was far too many wetlands, that the access was very poor, it was not a suitable site. I can tell you with complete honesty that we are not looking at any other property anywhere in town. We have no plans whatsoever at this time to do any other development.
Well, I think everyone will be very happy to hear that, so thank you very much. I'm also wondering, will the taxes from, if we do these buildings for the over 55, will the taxes that we receive from the units if we sell them cover the services and the needs of the town that they will incur? That's one of our big concerns.
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, please.
So we hired a extremely reputable financial analyst, Craig Seymour, who did a fiscal impact study, which we presented to the Finance Committee earlier in the week. That study concluded that this development would show $450,000 in additional revenue each year above and beyond the cost of the project. There were a number of questions that the Finance Committee had, and they've asked us to supplement the report that we presented to them, and we are in the process of doing that and expect to report back to the Finance Committee prior to the December 14th town meeting.
Okay, and so maintaining of the senior center would be the town of Halifax's responsibility, because that would be our building.
That is
we own it.
Yes.
But the actual units themselves, would that be a property management company
Yes.
that you employ?
Well, we hire a property management company, and ultimately the trustees who, the owners of the community will elect their own board of trustees, and they will in turn hire a property management company.
What community? The community of
The community, the senior housing that we're going to build.
So the people that live there will have to pay for that property management company within their condo
That is
fees?
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. All right,
Good questions.
that's what I wanted to ask, sorry, just needed to know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Deb? Yeah, just announce who you are, Deb, okay?
And remind everybody to direct their questions to us.
Yeah.
Deb Winowitz, 60 Sycamore Drive. If the 55 and over complexes are not approved, and Thorndike does own that property, what will be built there?
Do you want me to answer that question?
Yeah,
please.
yeah, because I'm sure I'd answer the same way, but
So when we purchased the property, it was with the intent to build a 40B apartment community. And we received a project eligibility letter from the state to build 200 apartments on the 265 Monpont Street parcel. And we had another project eligibility letter that we were about to file for the parcel across the street for 30 apartments. As a company, we build a lot of active adult communities, and we also build rental apartments. We feel that this would be an appropriate and a very good site for apartments here in Halifax, but we love building over 55 communities also. The only reason that we did not propose an over 55 community here, which would have been our preference, is because it didn't have the appropriate zoning. We didn't have the ability to do it, and we were approached by several of the selectmen who asked us whether or not if the town was interested in modifying the zoning, would we have an interest in changing our plans for the property, and rather than building the apartments, building an over 55 community. And that's what we're trying to do.
Right, so if it does not pass, it will be back to the original apartments, children. all of that?
Deb, you need to direct the questions up here.
Oh, hello.
I think if you don't mind, if I might jump in here, I think it's a little difficult to ask about, it would be pure speculation, right? To ask if this doesn't go through, you know, what else might come up, because right now this is the project on the board. I think they probably heard the lack of enthusiasm from the community about the previous project. And obviously, as investors, they're looking to capitalize on that investment, and a 55-plus community is probably a little bit more palatable for our specific community. So I'm not totally sure it's fair to say, well, how far down the line do we go before you run out of options? Because we're specifically talking about this project here, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's appropriate to say.
Thank you, that's exactly right.
So,
All right, so really, this is the best option.
that's up for interpretation for the people of the public, but we know what the option was before, and we know what the option is in front of us. We have no idea what the next option is, and I think it's up to everybody's own opinion as to which is the better option between the two we've seen so far.
Thank you.
Very well put. Yeah.
You can just take this microphone home with you.
No. I just have a question. So, just big picture. Is Thorndike getting any government supplement or any incentive from the state? Because the state is obviously pushing for this big multifamily, multiple housing, whatever it is. I'm just wondering if they are getting anything from the state in order to put these places up in different places.
We'd have to direct that question to you.
The answer is no. There is no money coming from the state. The economics of this work for us, frankly, because we are not in this particular example, building 25% of the homes is affordable. I am a strong believer in affordable housing, but it drives up the price of the market rate housing dramatically. And so we're here, we are donating the land and making mitigation payments for the senior center, essentially in lieu of doing affordable housing. The project size, from our perspective, can be substantially smaller because we are not including the 25% affordable component.
On that, do you have any financing from Mass Housing Partnership or neighborhood housing that you would be going for?
No, as a market rate for sale condominium project, we would not qualify for any of that type of financing. This will be an entirely privately financed development, as we have done for decades. With a local bank, we work with Mechanics Bank a lot, we work with Eastern Bank, we work with Rockland Trust, and then private equity. Some of our own, some of our investors.
Do you know what type of loans that you do get from Rockland Trust and Eastern Bank?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're asking me.
So there's different types of funding that you can get, and it's directed from different people. So Rockland Trust does Mass Housing Partnership and all of that as well. Do you know what type of loans do you get? There's a reason.
None of that applies to a market rate. None of that applies to a market rate development like this. This is a conventional construction loan. If you wanted to put an addition on your home and you went to one of these banks for a construction loan, it's the same type of loan. It's just more of it.
Well, the reason that I ask is because we're educated. I am a realtor by profession. We're educated nowadays through financing that those loans are being offered as a way of getting multi-housing in our small towns. So that is why I would ask, is because we're being educated on that currently.
Right. Multi-housing rental, it's possible. These are for sale.
It's both.
Okay. I'll check into it and we'll get back to you on that. But I can tell you that we have no plans to use anything other than conventional financing here.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Bill Alger, 340 Plymouth Street. This is only just for aesthetics. Wouldn't that housing, elderly housing, go on this side of the street better than all those big giant buildings? You have a bunch of new big giant buildings here, buildings here, yes, you have one commercial building here, but wouldn't that look nice over here? And then you got this little tiny house, just for aesthetics.
You're talking about the senior center?
Over on this side.
Yeah.
It would never fit there, it's a lot smaller lot. All that big stuff over there.
Yeah, I think it's the size of the lot, but I'll...
It's probably also the accessibility, right? I mean, if you have people that
Yeah,
don't have
they
to
have to
cross
cross
over
the street,
58
yeah.
to get to the senior
It's the
center.
size of the lot.
Well, it's an interesting point, but in this particular, and I don't disagree with you conceptually.
How many acres are on this side?
Well, that's the problem. This is only 1.5 acres, and this parcel is 1.8 acres. And not only that, this is a odd configuration to this lot. So whereas this is a perfect rectangle, which we were able to do, so we would not be able, well, you can see how much parking we were able to lay out with this building as compared to the parking necessary for the
Given all your
senior
big
center.
septic system would be over there, and all the big septic systems for the other buildings too.
Yeah. We would not be able to fit this size senior center with its necessary parking on the other side of the street. I wouldn't be opposed to the idea,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't work.
It's 20 feet from the Route 58. Later on down the road, is it going to become a slum later on down the road?
Is this building going to become a slum?
Sure. I mean, they all do. They all need building, all need work after 20 years.
Depends who buys it. Right, if they're individual condos that are to be purchased.
Well, it comes down to the association,
Right.
really, at that point.
Well, that disappears after a while too.
And with economy.
Anything else?
Frederick Corrigan, Rosewood Drive. I already live in a senior development, and I appreciate what's happening here. And if I'm not wrong, and I usually am, my understanding is that with this type of project, once the buildings are built, the tax revenue immediately starts coming into the town. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you are.
So unlike if a bunch of houses were being built, the town does not get any revenue until the house is sold. In this case, when the building is built, the town is going to start to receive revenue. Now, we're not going to be spending on school children, which is good, because our little elementary school could not handle the influx if this were 100 apartments with 2 kids in each apartment. It would be disastrous. However, there is one slight negative that I'm picking out of what I'm seeing here, and that is we have a traffic problem here in the town of Halifax, but part of it is due to Halifax, because there was a survey taken in this town by the Plymouth County Transportation Committee, and they recommended that we take these antique stoplights that we have on 58 and 106 and Stop and Shop and Walmart and change them to synchronized lights, so that then when the traffic, if you made, going west, if you made 58 and 106, you made all 3. You didn't get stopped with each one of them. And coming back the same way. Okay, if you make one light, you're going to make all 3. Now, where am I leading with this? The biggest effect that I see on this project, negative effect, is on our traffic, because we don't have these synchronized lights. The people living in these condos, when they come out of those condos, they're not going to head south, because there's nothing south of us that's going to bring them down to Plimpton. Maybe a few of them are going to get out of Dollar Tree, but not everybody. Most of them are going to come north and use that intersection of 106 and 58. Therefore, these new lights are really needed in this town. And somehow, some way, because we're contemplating this development, we're contemplating other developments. We've already approved a big storage development that's supposed to change the light on Stop and Shop to a four-way, but has anybody said to them, the light you're going to change had better be a synchronized light? Okay? This should all be part of all of these developments. They're putting the overload on our traffic, which is already overloaded, and people don't understand that if we synchronize the traffic and lower the speeds down a little bit, everybody's going to be able to move a lot better instead of just racing from light to light and getting nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen.
These are items that should come up at the site plan review to see how the traffic's going to be handled coming out of the development and depending on which direction. And to his point, the northerly direction would probably be the most traveled, and that's where the congestion tends to be most times. But unless you have something else to offer on that.
No, I think you're exactly right. That would be part of the site plan approval process.
It would be, but it's also something that we should be considering when we're considering having an over-densitized zoning overlay district as well as being on the planning board, because we'd be allowing something and then therefore fighting it afterwards in order to try and protect the town from the over-road density of the traffic. So it is part of our decision-making on whether or not to recommend this to our town.
Do we have anyone else? Jonathan?
Thank you. I don't have a question, I just have a comment, if that's all right. John Bruno, Board of Selectmen, Stony Weir Road. I'm also on the zoning bylaw review committee, so I've listened to this presentation a bunch of times. And also, we've been involved with this project at least a year now. So about a year ago, we took a trip and walked that land. I don't know if anyone has ever walked it. It had started some sort of construction several years ago or decades ago. 10 years ago. And currently, that property, not O'Brien's Orchard, but the other side, is a hazard in my view. There are open foundations, there are half-constructed buildings all over the place, and it's an eyesore to start with and a hazard. Thorndike owns that property. They're going to do something with it. It's their property, and they're entitled to do whatever they can get away with if we look at it that way. We've talked to them, Selectman Seelig talked with them about a project that would be not only beneficial for their development, but also beneficial for the town. And it does solve a couple of problems for us, one of which is the over 55 availability would be better than having I think it was 250 apartments, 230 apartments, and this is about half of that, yeah. So it's about half of the number of units, and again, it takes away the school issue. We don't have to deal with that. We don't know about traffic issues. That's a whole different kettle of fish, but it also, their proposal takes into account something that we've been working on in this town for 35 years, and that's to deal with the current senior center, which is not acceptable. It's not handicapped acceptable. It really shouldn't be a senior center any longer. And this senior center, I wish we would start calling it what it really is going to be, because it is going to be the senior housing, a senior center for the Council on Aging. It's also a community building. If you look at the plans, I'd ask Lloyd maybe to explain that a little bit, but the building itself that they're proposing and that we have been talking about is something that can have, it'll be locked off for the senior, the director of the Council on Aging and the senior center. It also has a large availability for community things, a meeting like this, Boy Scout meetings, soccer meetings, anything like that. It's a town building. So the Board of Selectmen is very enthusiastically in support of both proposals. The change in the bylaw, which is necessary to build this, and we don't see a detriment to the change in the bylaw. And it also, we are very much in support of this project because something's going to go there. I mean, it's vacant land, they own it, they're going to do something with it. And if we can get a project like this done, I think it benefits all of us.
I have a question for you. So we're looking at disregarding section 167, 10, 11, and 12. Do you know what those are?
I don't know specifically what you're talking about, no.
Oh, so on the zoning bylaw review committee, when you're reviewing this bylaw for recommending a change, you didn't look at what it would change in our bylaw?
Well, we did look at that. I can't tell you off the top of my head what those mean, no.
Okay. They would be wetlands, MGLC 13140. Wetlands is defined by the Town of Halifax Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Land subject to flooding as defined by MGL 13140. The Wetlands Protection Act, land within a floodplain district as defined by 167.4 of the chapter. It gets rid of all of our table of dimensional and density regulations, which we already would know. It gets rid of quite a few pages of our bylaw, but some of the most concerning are the flood ones, and that's due to the fact that this has protected land on it and it abuts a flood zone. Did you know that?
It does have wetlands. I don't know where that line is, but I think that those questions aren't really directed to me. They should be directed to counsel for Thorndike, I think, or Mr. Lloyd. Counsel for Thorndike knows this bylaw.
Well, the reason that I'm asking you is due to the fact that you're recommending the bylaw as a selectman to our town, and
Right.
there's huge things that we would be disregarding within the bylaw that I think you should look at, because some of the floodland zones gets rid of, so if we have this overlay district, then it disregards all of our protection of the floodlands, and there's actually mesa land that is on this property.
I don't think it does, but I'm going to defer that to counsel.
So what I'll say is, it's not my understanding that any portion of the property to be rezoned is within any other overlay district currently.
It is.
It is. Not our understanding. The portion to be rezoned.
I think the confusion here is that the wetlands confusion. The wetlands bylaws are not being removed. The zoning bylaw that's proposed only addresses those elements that are presented in the bylaw. All of the wetlands requirements and regulations remain in full force and effect. And, excuse me, if I could just finish, if for some reason I'm mistaken in that regard, I'll represent here this evening that we will work with town council to correct that so that the bylaw that comes before town meeting in no way undermines the town's wetlands regulations.
It says that the dimensional and density regulations of section 167.10, 167.11, and 12 do not apply. It also states in here that you are going to be above any of our laws. It says that this section will supersede any of our other laws. Those are very big red flags.
Right, but those are provisions with respect to the density of the housing, so use and dimensional requirements. If you're saying that there's a portion of the property that's located within a floodplain district, for example, under the zoning bylaw, that would be news.
It's 167.10M.
Right.
So it is
that's
part of 10. So you're disregarding in this.
No,
And
no.
it would be ambiguous and unclear, so it could leave a gray mark. I would ask
No.
that be adjusted.
Okay, I mean, I don't think there's a lack of clarity because that only will apply, a floodplain overlay, for example, will only apply to portions of the town that are within the floodplain, the mapped
I still
floodplain.
think that it could be very misconstrued, and there could be different interpretations of what parts and what parts aren't included in the removing of that from that overlay.
Okay, we can look at that. We can certainly clarify that there's no intent in here to sort of avoid any overlay with respect to floodplain. But it has to be clear that the use, for example, is allowed pursuant to the overlay, notwithstanding whatever the underlying zoning is.
You could maybe design it in the bylaw that you would only specifically remove 16710 and be specific about the sections that you would not be touching?
We can look at that, but I think, again, I don't think there's anything that would be, from our perspective, when we drafted this, we were trying to be as particular as we could about what we were overriding, but we can look again and make sure that it's clear that we're not overriding anything that we don't want to override, or the town doesn't want us to override, so we can do that.
Anyone else? She had her hand up earlier.
Jim Lundy, Montponset Street. I'm just a little bit concerned about the water supply. We have a water ban every year, and what effect is this going to have on the water?
Sure.
We don't have with us our civil engineer this evening, but I am familiar with the water situation. We've talked with the water superintendent on multiple times, and it is our very clear understanding that there is no supply issue relative to adding these homes to the town water supply. We understand that the town has been dealing with a manganese problem, but that's not a quantity issue, that's a quality issue. But from a quantity standpoint, it is our understanding from specific conversations that there's adequate water. We will get a letter to that effect and discuss directly with the water department to get that in writing prior to town meeting and submit it to the board.
Thank you.
Where did you get that information about the water supply being?
You've got to direct your question to us.
Please.
Where does that information come from that we have plenty of water?
Can I ask the question?
Yeah.
It comes from a meeting with the water superintendent?
Well, why do we have a water ban every year?
That's something we'd have to ask the water superintendent about.
Can that be addressed? I mean, not now, but
Yeah, sure.
can we make sure that we're going to have plenty of water, basically?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. It's not in regards to your question. At these meetings, we have a lot of people that come to present, and a lot of people in the community have questions. To keep it fair, polite, and professional, anybody that has any questions or statements, we ask that you present them to us, because the people who are making presentations to develop in our town are not on trial. They are here as business people to try to help the future development. So to stay professional, please just direct all your questions here. I know the questions are for them, but please, so that they can answer them, because they didn't drive here to be put on trial. That's all I ask. Fair?
Thank you.
Okay.
Chris Winowitz, just to be clear, once the water system leaves the street, is it the full responsibility of the project to maintain it in the future? Hydrants, lines, and the town has no responsibility?
That would be a question we need to ask the water superintendent. It's been my experience that in every town we've worked, the water department insists on taking responsibility for the maintenance of the water lines within the project. The regular maintenance of the roads, the plowing of the roads, any repairs to the roads, the drainage system, the septic systems that will be installed would all be the responsibility of the development. But with respect to water, where those water lines are connected to the rest of the town system, and I do not have a specific, we have not specifically had that conversation with the water department, but we will.
Another question. Earlier tonight, they said what was on that plan would be part of the master project and they'd be committed to build if it was voted for. Earlier, they said they would extend all the sidewalks too, like from Parsons Lane for any senior citizens living there or handicapped. Is that still true? Because I didn't see it on the plan.
Thank you for that. That was an oversight on my part. Yes, it is still part of the commitment of the project. The plan is to extend the sidewalks from the the homes directly to our south and connect up to the existing sidewalk system.
One last question, just to be clear, when they first sell it, every single resident, every unit will be required to be over 55? And then once it's sold in the future, a second time, it would be up to the property management association to make sure everyone's over 55?
That's typically how it goes, but I'll let him answer.
So to clarify,
One person.
the over 55 federal statute requires that one adult at least be over the age of 55. Keeping in mind that it will be part of the documents that no school-age children can reside there permanently. But up to 20% of the condominiums can be sold to a household under the age of 55. This is part of the federal statute. Again, I would remind you that there are no school-age children permitted in any of the households. So if a individual finds living in a senior community attractive and they have not yet achieved the age of 55, up to 20% of the homes can be sold to someone under the age of 55.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
What has your experience been with people under 55 and having suddenly introduced children? What kind of process do you need to go through, and has it ever happened, and how does that work out?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
If somebody moved in, one of the 20%, and they were under 55, and they, I hate to use the word smuggled, but smuggled a couple of children in, how would you handle it?
Well, it would be a violation of the condominium documents, and the Board of Trustees would be able to lien the property and tell them that those kids have to leave. And there would be court proceedings if they didn't. I mean, I've been doing this 40 years, and my experience over a dozen of these communities is that the Board of Trustees, the people who move to these communities, very much want the nature and character of the community that they've bought into. If you wanted to live in a multi-generational community, you would buy a condominium in a multi-generational community. So the self-policing that goes on, the trustees are historically the most vigilant of any potential group. It's not to say that someone can't break the rules. I mean, we all, experience rules being broken, but we've never known that to be an issue.
Thank you. You've been waiting patiently.
Darlene Regan, Director for the Halifax Council on Aging. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and I also want to thank the board. First and foremost, we have to build a community. We're obligated to provide schools to our children, and we are obligated to provide some services for our community, for the taxpayers, as well as the aging community. Out of respect for the community today, are we taking care of our aging population? Come to the senior center. I'd like to invite everyone here. We're not ADA compliant. We have to look for rooms to serve the public. Where are we going? So this is an offering. I'm just saying, I come from an environment where there's support for their aging population, and there's only one where we're all going. We're all aging, every one of us. I wish we could change the silver tsunami, but we are changing. We have to have some support systems out there. Senior centers, changing every day. Some of the senior centers today are melding with their rec rooms or the rec centers, library. Okay, they're providing support systems. They go above and beyond, okay, in terms of community services for caregivers, for the individuals, for people with disabilities. We provide outreach, we provide transportation to doctor's visits. That's tough. I don't know if you've ever been there when you couldn't get a ride somewhere.
You need to direct it to the
Sorry.
board, please.
I know, I love everybody though. What can I say? But, the link to the social services, we are that link. We're the front line to the community, the senior centers. And we provide the resources that are out there to everyone, not just older adults or people with disabilities, to their families, to everyone. We're there for a lot of different programs. We provide also enhanced base programs, okay? Diabetes educational programs. We provide a lot more than the average consumer would ever think. We also help people through crisis issues in terms of housing, in terms of where they can go to find the resources. So there's wellness programs, there's educational programs, there's a lot of things that we could offer for this town, and yet we do not have any community rooms there. And if you look around at other centers, they also open in the evening. They open to the Boy Scouts, they open to the other parts of the other people that's, are in the town. And, it could be even a tax revenue for the senior center in terms of charging some of the people that want to utilize it in the evening. So there's a multi-purpose use in this. Yes, it's going to drive, and I live in a townhouse, I live in condo environment, and I know the association that we have, and they enforce the fact of certain rules and regulations. Otherwise, we will complain and would be up there to, with the property management company as well, be there to make sure that something happens. So I come from both environments. I see this as a positive thing in terms of what was proposed, in terms of what we've been looking at to do in the last 35 years, and the money that we have spent thus far on architects. That's money that we could have used for other things. So, I don't know, where are you going to go? Where are we going to go from here? So it's an option. Thank you.
Thank you. If we don't have anyone else,
I have a question.
I'd probably like to open it up to the board.
I have a question. Bottom line, when you first came up, you had made mention about Sawyer's Reach. And we have, as in past history in the town, we've tried on multiple occasions to put up a council on aging. And being a part of that, you see every time that we put a proposal together, the prices go up, the prices go up. So I was just wondering, in your experience with specifically Sawyer's Reach, if this is going to work, with the amount that Thorndike is putting in, plus what the town has, is this going to be affordable? Are we going to be able to build this building? What do you think?
Well, I think absolutely, and I feel more confident about that than I would have been 6 months ago, because we're building every day, and I can tell you costs are not going up anymore. More and more subcontractors are looking for work. Work has definitely dried up. Construction has slowed down. We are not seeing the type of upward pressure on the cost of construction that we were seeing over the past 3 years. Quite the contrary. We're seeing it slightly moderating. It's very helpful that we built, as I said earlier, a building almost identical to this, so we knew exactly, we have complete construction documents on that building. Now,
what did Sawyer's Reach cost, if you don't mind me asking?
That building?
Yes, if it's pretty much identical to this one.
Well, that's how we came up with the budget of $3.3 million.
3.3.
Yeah, so we took that cost and we updated those numbers to today's bids. We went out to Key Trades, our lumber company, our plumber, our electrician, to confirm that how we were adjusting the pricing was correct. We went to our site contractor, we looked at paving numbers. We spent a couple of weeks putting these numbers together, and we concluded that this building and its entire site work should be able to be built, could be built for sure by us for $3.3 million at prevailing wage. And the total then that has been allocated as an upper limit is $3.8 million. So there's a $500,000 cushion in there against upwardly trending costs, which we're not seeing right now.
How would the time frame work on this in terms of how far the development is before you
It's a good
start
question.
this?
So what the master development agreement lays out is that when we complete the site plan approval process with this board, coincident with receiving an approval, we would deed the property to the town for the senior center. So that's an irreversible action. So the town would then own that land to be able to build the senior center on it. We would expect at the same time to begin construction on our first building. These buildings take us about 10 months to build. Let's call it a year.
Per building, are you talking about?
Per building, but we overlap the buildings. So obviously, once the foundation is in, we're able to move the foundation crew over to the next building and start. So it's not
Just
3
keeps
years
cascading,
to
yeah.
build 3, but it cascades depending on sales pace, of course. But as a company, it has been always my philosophy that we build to sell at pace. Over the past 10 years, across multiple projects, we have averaged 50 sales per year per project. That's 1 a week. And that's not by accident. Some developers try and get top dollar that they can get. We're not opposed to getting top dollar, but when we have to choose between pace and price, we always choose pace. And that's what we would do here. So we would expect, as the condominiums in the first building close, there would be a payment to the town as each one closes, contributing to that $2.6 million commitment. So once the first building is completed and the units have closed, the master development agreement obligates us to post a bond with the town for the second half of Thorndike's contribution to the senior center. So let's think of it in thirds. We have the $1.2 million from the town that's already been approved. We have $1.2 million that will come out of the first building, and then we have approximately another $1.2 million. So with the 2/3 of the cash sitting in an account and a bond obligating the payment of the last piece, the town would be able to start construction on the senior
That's
center.
what I was getting.
So if we start as we expect next summer with the construction, and I like that timing based on what's going on in the market right now, then we would expect the senior centers to start summer of 2025 and be open late spring, summer of 2026. So 2.5 years from now.
Okay.
I wish it was faster, but these things take time.
That answers my question. Comments? Anyone? Feelings, thoughts? Well,
I do have some, I'm just collecting my thoughts.
well, I don't mind jumping in. There's been a lot of discussion about the character of the town. Well, the character of the town has been evolving since I moved here 45 years ago. That's one thing we can't stop, is progress. As people move in, things change. We've been very fortunate in the past. We have 2 big box stores, if you will, Walmart and Stop and Shop, and we were very fortunate to have them way back off the road. We're not looking at 15 acres of parking out in front of the stores. We've been fortunate up until now. One of the problems that I see that we're running into is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which is really, really promoting affordable housing in particular, not necessarily 55 and older, but affordable housing. The 2 options for this property, and you know, if you own the property, you're going to do something with it, and you're going to try to maximize what you can do with it. I think we're very fortunate in being presented an opportunity to have a 55 and over development with the perks of a senior center thrown into the mix. 55 not adding to the density at the school. We're running pretty high in terms of enrollment at the school now. We would have to be looking at a school project in addition to anything else we're doing in town. And the Commonwealth does not look at those numbers. They don't care how many people you're going to put in school. They don't care about the fact that you have to increase your water output. That is irrelevant to the state. They're going to mandate it. And we lose any control in a 40B project. Even a friendly 40B, we get some involvement. Most developers try to accommodate the town so that they can have a pleasant relationship with the town. But if the town makes it a hostile environment, then you don't have a whole lot of options. The state pretty much mandates what they can do. And it's unfortunate. It's not anything we can do about, anything about. I think this project, in my mind, is the best possible use of this property. Sure, it's going to add some traffic up there. We're going to have to look at that. But anything that happens is going to add traffic. We're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to find ways to get around it or live with it. When I moved to town, not to use me as an example, the light at 58 and 106 was blinking sometimes. Not all times. All three of the corners were empty. So it's been a change. But again, we're involved. We have to. Our population has increased considerably since 1976, and it's going to continue a little bit more, although we're running out of land. That's the only saving grace that we have, is there's not a whole lot of developable land left in town. But I can't see a better use of this property based on what it could be. I mean, had it been a subdivision, yeah, that would have been nice. It would have been limited to, I don't know, 10, 12 houses, 14 houses, but that's not the case. That's not the business model today. I think we're fortunate, from my experience working and talking with Thorndike, they're workable. I have had the experience of working with other outfits that were far less amenable to anything nice for the town. I think I would have a hard time not supporting this, myself personally. There's arguments to be made. We've got big corporations, this, that, and the other thing. Well, hello, somebody's going to do something with this property. It's not going to lay idle. I think we need to get the best possible we can out of it. That's my opinion.
Anybody else?
You pretty much said everything I'd say. I feel exactly the same way.
I have a few questions for the developer as far as, in your letter to the town, you stated that there was sidewalks planned to get to town
Yes,
by you?
yes.
So you would be putting the sidewalks
Yes.
from, all the way from the senior housing, all the way both sides to the center of Halifax?
The plan is to only do one side, so there is an existing sidewalk that is on the eastern side, the western side of Monpont, starting right about here. We would be extending the sidewalk from the housing community below us up to a crosswalk crossing and coming this way. The grades do not really, and the width of the right-of-way do not support a sidewalk on the east side of the roadway. Frankly, we would prefer to have one on that side. But in studying it, from our engineers studying it, they concluded it would be extremely challenging. But the plan is to have a continuous sidewalk up to the stoplight.
When would you be installing that?
That would go in no later than the first occupancy permit. So with the first community, first building.
So you'll do the sidewalks as long as the economy stays up to keep selling condominiums and all of that. So like basically we'll get stuff if it starts to sell.
All of the mitigation that we're presenting and our ability to pay the $2.6 million to build the pickleball courts, to put in the sidewalk, are all connected to the development of the property. If the development doesn't go forward, the town would still be deeded the property for the senior center, but we would not be we would not be going, if we don't go forward with the project, we don't make those payments. That's correct.
Just to clarify, you said when the first building permit is pulled, you would have the sidewalk?
Well, I said first occupancy permit, but we're open to discussion on that issue.
So you want us to change the overlay district, and then after you build things, give us mitigation money? So I like the idea of the whole thing, but my job is to question, because it sounds good. I think it sounds fantastic, to be quite honest with you. However, I also take into consideration the fact that unless everything goes okay, so if we really look at the economy, we've sold double to triple the amount of properties in our areas since COVID started. But the city of Boston and huge metropolitan areas have over a year's worth of supply. We're back to regular normal rates. I would not call these rates high. I would call the rates that we've been at for the last several years way too low, which has kept us from really seeing the downfall of the economy in 2008 from all of the sales that happened before. So we've really just been covering over a lot of the economy. And now with the rates, we've just really gone into it. So in these classes that I take, the financing situation, the financing institutions that are providing us with these classes are telling us that the foreclosures are lining up left and right, and the banks haven't started to unload them yet because they don't want to be the first one to do so. So my problem is if we all of a sudden have 72 and then 30 on another side, so 102 apartments, condos, what would you switch them to in order to provide yourself with income? And would that make it so that the mitigation didn't happen? Like, for instance, you've had other projects in the past that were 55 and over that have been changed to not be 55 and over. There's some in Duxbury, there's some in other towns. So they did not remain over 55 after they were built because the town couldn't support the projects. They couldn't actually give you the demographic study. So I'm sorry, like, I want a senior center too, I do. But I'm just showing you the holes in the presentation so that you're aware of the fact that this is not a sure thing. This is if the economy keeps going and if we don't lose our water wells, because really, I understand that seniors need all these things. I agree with you wholeheartedly. They also deserve to be able to pay the house that they live in and have water come out of their faucets, along with the rest of the town. So there's 8,000 people that live in Halifax, and we all need to afford our housing. We need to have water come out of our faucets. We need to have heat, electricity, roads, schools, for sure. We all need these things. However, we have a few things here that are what-ifs of the project when you really look at the fact that the economy is on edge.
So just to add to that, I'm going to jump in here if we're going to start talking about what all of our areas of expertise are. I'm a financial advisor by trade, so I think the one differentiating fact to this is the difference between regular housing or affordable housing, or even just the primary residential housing, and the differentiating factor here is the 55 plus. Because the statistics are that there are going to be trillions of dollars that are being passed from generation to generation over the next 10 to 15 years. Those are just the numbers, okay? So if we're concerned about vacancies or empty projects not being able to be sold, that would be accurate if it were something that was a first-time home buyer or things of that nature. What we have working in our favor with this project is that the minimum requirement of the 55 plus is the generation that has already had time to accumulate wealth in order to afford a housing project like this, whether it is to downsize out of their residential home and take that equity and take that money and place it into a living situation that is in their town or in a town neighboring them, which is now Halifax, in an area or a community that they want to join. So I would 100% agree with you in everything that you just said, other than the fact that what differentiates it is the 55 plus and the transfer of assets over the next 10 to 15 years. That's what is, I don't want to say it's a safety net because anything can happen. I'm sure 55-plus communities were affected by the 2008 financial crisis. However, moving forward with the certain sanctions that were put in place and rules from banking and funding, although they're certainly not perfect, what I would think would mitigate the risk or minimize the risk for this project is who's going to be allowed to purchase them. So that would be my input on this, only to counter your very valid points. Not counter, to add in addition to your valid points.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that if people sell their house, they might have money to purchase this, but how many? 102 in our area? I mean, like other towns do have them. Again, my thought process is I would want to have the mitigation put up front if we're gonna have our town. That's my thought process, mitigation up front. Let's see a little bit of the cake so that we want to allow this, so that we know it's going to happen. So I think that you should be putting some things forth first, because my fear is that in a few years, we won't be able to do this again, and it'll be a horse that we drew, like a cart without the horse, because of all these things. So I'm actually pushing for this to happen, the things come before, because I would hate to get everybody's hopes up and have them fall due to the fact that these things are possible. So
I think they're doing, I think it's a gesture of good faith, the fact that they're deeding the town the space up front as soon as the project gets passed. And then from a basic business and economic standpoint, you can't ask a major development company to start fronting millions of dollars in good faith.
Can I clarify a couple of, Can I clarify just a couple of things? Because I'm glad you brought this up, because I should have gotten into it in a little more detail. So the way the master development agreement is crafted right now, we are able to receive a building permit to build the first building, but we cannot receive any occupancy permits unless we make the payment to the town. So we will have a construction lender who will loan us money to build the building, and we will be pre-selling the homes. Once the homes are ready to convey, which is the only way in which the loan gets paid off, we have to pay the town on a unit-by-unit basis before we get that occupancy permit. So even if the worst were to happen and Thorndike were to go bankrupt and walk away from the project, the bank that would then own the property would be obligated to make that payment to the town in order to be able to sell each unit. So as the building goes forward, the town, the critical moment in time is when the building permit is issued and the building is started. Once we go down that path, the town has to get its payments on those first 36 units, either from us or somebody else. If, again, I've been in business 40 years, we've finished every project we've ever started, but your point is well taken, things happen. We've bought failed projects in the past, so I'm not going to say projects haven't failed. But there's a lesson in that as well, because if for whatever reason we were not to finish the project, once the condominium is started and the condominium documents are filed, there's no turning back. There's no way to unring that bell. The project needs to get finished out based on the condominium documents that are filed. Now, it may not be us, and it may stall for a year or two as a bank takes it over and sells it to another developer. But that new developer would in turn be obligated to honor the same agreements as have been approved in the master development documents, unless the town were to decide to make a change. The last thing I'll say is that with respect to the over 55, you're absolutely right that there have been communities in which developers have gone back to the town on 40B projects and asked to change the restriction on the over 55 because a 40B project is not subject to local zoning. It's a critical difference here. Here, the overlay zoning, if the town chooses to approve it, requires that any multifamily development that goes forward is over 55. The only way in which that could be changed would be for town meeting to vote to change it. And all of the homeowners who had already purchased, if the project was underway, would also have to agree to change it. It's a very, very, very high bar. It is not possible, I will say it is actually impossible, for the developer on his own to petition the town to make that change. If it was a 40B, they could make that petition. As a market rate project subject to local zoning, a new zoning bylaw, it couldn't happen unless town meeting approved it. Very legitimate points, but I think in this particular case, working with town administrator, working with the select board, and now working with the planning board, we've tried to address a number of these issues. And there have been some good points raised here tonight we're going to check into with respect to water and other matters, the wetlands, the floodplain, and we will make sure that we get back to you in writing once we've fleshed those items out.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm good.
Anyone else in the audience? If not, I guess we're going to close the hearing, and then we will vote to recommend or not recommend at town meeting. So seeing no indication of anyone else,
I still say that housing should go on this side.
duly,
That's going to be terrible.
duly
20
noted.
feet away from the road, it's going to...
Duly noted. Chris?
This is just more for the planning board. When we go to town meeting, which is quickly approaching, and look for the article that all this information was presented on, is there any other known articles that will be on the warrant for any overlays or rezoning? So there's no confusion that we're looking for this one?
No, there's no other zoning articles as far as I know.
We haven't opened the warrant, we're doing that I mean, we've opened the warrant, we're going to... But there's no other zoning. There's nothing else on there, on this town meeting.
So no overlays, no other zoning. So when we look at the warrant, this will be the only one on there?
The only zoning issue. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh.
Sorry.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to close the hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Hearing is closed, which means we will not take any more comments. We will either discuss or go directly to a vote. Does anyone have anything else to add? I think we covered it all pretty well. I'll entertain a motion in the affirmative to recommend the article as presented at town meeting. Do I have a motion?
And sorry, Mr. Chair, just to confirm that that's all four parts of the proposal.
Oh, yes, the entire, in its entirety.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to amend the motion to say that it would specify which parts of 167, 10, 11, and 12, so that there is no confusion, just to be specific. Because if you don't, then it looks like, and it could be misconstrued by many, that M, 16710M, is also stricken from the record, and therefore I think that the itemization and the updated zoning overlay bylaw should be considered, because of the fact that it could be confusing in the future to some that will be sitting here later.
I think we can vote on this. The articles are always amendable at town meeting. We can.
You're referencing to protect that bylaw. No, I get it. You're referencing to protect that bylaw, not specifically for this project because it doesn't affect this project. But if we, in order to amend to approve this project, it may open up an issue for another project in the future.
They could.
Correct. No, I get. I'm clarifying where that.
Yeah,
so it was to bring it back to the conversation we were having before. It wasn't, not accusing is the wrong word, but it wasn't pointing that this project would be in violation of that bylaw, but it would be actually getting rid of that bylaw or zoning bylaw for a future project that could cause an issue, that they can just say, well, they did it, so we're going to do it.
Yeah, so the point's a valid one and taken, but go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
No, I was just going to say, but that would have to also be approved at another town meeting for a different site, because we're only approving it, the overlay for this particular site at this time.
Not to disagree, but I think the point's being made that if we adopt this as an overlay, it can land someplace else in town if town meeting approves. And I'm with you that rather than delay that point in which we're clarifying, I'm happy to do it now. So we're happy to make the change. And again, there was no intent to override anything with respect to other portions of the zoning bylaw that we thought might apply to this site, because our anticipation is none of those provisions in M are going to apply to this site, but we're happy to make the clarification. So if you want to add that as an amendment to this particular set of requests, we're happy to do that.
Did you have language for that?
He was agreeing to have the specific,
Right.
am I wrong?
Yeah.
Attorney Laurel, right?
Yes.
You're agreeing to go through it and then present it in writing at town meeting, but how we would actually now approve this bylaw, or?
We could vote to recommend subject to.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
fine.
basically what I would be
right.
looking.
Okay, subject to the condition that we will clarify in the version to go to town meeting that any provisions that we want to avoid overriding with respect to the underlying bylaw, we will clarify them at town meeting so that there's no confusion over whether we're sort of displacing pieces of the bylaw that are not required to allow this sort of development to go forward.
So put that in the motion so that we can
Yes,
vote,
subject
and then
to.
we'll go from there.
Yeah. Did you get all of that? Or you,
Do you want, yeah, we can,
Are we able to take more comments from the?
So Danielle,
we've closed the hearing.
in the zoning text, at
We'll
number
let you throw something in, John.
5B, it says 16710, 16711, and 16712, and that they're going to itemize which things that they're talking about and be clear.
why don't we say, subject to provisions to the draft prior to town meeting. Prior to town meeting.
Mr. Bruno
To
wanted to add
specify
something.
which portions of sections 167, 10, 11, and 12?
Yep.
167, 10, 11, and 12 will be superseded, right, by the overlay. Or you could state it the other way, which ones wouldn't be.
So there's some things that aren't referring to dimensional charts that need to be disincluded from being void.
Correct. So which would not be overridden, I guess maybe is the way to say it.
And I still have a little bit of issue with the superseding of everything of 16728, because it doesn't make any sense for.
Oh, no, we're not
site plan
superseding,
at that point.
no, we're not superseding 16728. We're incorporating it. So it's as of right use, subject to 16728 is the way it should read.
Mr. Bruno?
Sorry.
So the warrant is open. This article will be on the warrant for December. It hasn't, the paperwork hasn't been completed on it, so we can change the text if we have to. So I would recommend, if you're so inclined, and of course, Mr. Moderator's right here, so he can answer questions too if we had to, but if you're so inclined to approve it with that stipulation that we approve it subject to this change, whatever is the change that you want, and it goes from there. The procedural part of all of this is that when we get to town meeting, the town meeting actually votes yes or no on the article, and it's not the planning board's vote. The planning board just gets to make a recommendation, right? The town meeting, which as you know, can just ignore it, or they can go with it, they can do anything they want to. So I don't think we need to get hung up on exactly what it says right now. That can be worked out between now and now and then. That's just a procedural thing.
Thank you.
Since you have the specific language that you would like to have in there while you make the motion to repeat it?
I don't have specific language because that would take a little while, and he's saying he's going to do it. I'm saying, subject to the amendments of the 167, 10, 11, and 12 per Attorney Laura.
Yeah, that's general enough that I think covers it all. Would you
Yeah,
say that?
so what I would say is that the proviso we're comfortable with, or the condition to the approval would be, subject to revisions to the draft prior to town meeting to specify which portions of 167-10, 11, and 12 will not be superseded.
So you want to amend your motion?
I'm just trying to get all the language in.
That would be the language I would suggest.
I would make a motion that,
subject to what he just
that
said.
we vote in favor of this project, subject to revision per Attorney Laurel on section 167, 10, 11, and 12, and it will not supersede the overlay.
I think substantively that's correct, yeah.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Brendan Elliott, yes.
Reluctantly, I will say yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Rick Mary, yes.
Bert Gaynor, yes.
Myself, Tom Millius, yes.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Do we have something else we're going to do?
No, you all have to stay. If we gotta stay, you gotta stay.
Want me to do that the form of a motion?
No, we'll just
go take it. I'll be right back.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, folks. We'll be back in 5 minutes. We're going to move on and try to get through this evening.
And my neighbors.
Nobody's listening to me, but we're going to still kind of do it.
I'll get lost into it.
Everyone, please. Thank you. Next up, new site plan review, 23 SPR 238, 550 Monpont Street. Applicant is Amy Sapphire. Did I say that correctly? Okay. Looks like Mr. Webby's going to be presenting for you. It's the first time I've ever called him Mr.
Good news is you're not gonna get any questions from the crowd, so don't have to worry about that. It's a blessing.
Evening, Joe Webby, Webby Engineering, and with me is John and Amy Sapphire. And basically, this is a meet and greet. They are the new owners of the restaurant, which used to be called the Montponset. And kind of what they would like to do is they're trying to put some landscaping in the front and pretty up the entrance. And one of the things that they are putting in is a portico share, so that people can drive in.
Joe, where is Monpont Street? I'm sorry, on the map. Where is Monpont Street? At the top, or?
Yeah, the top.
Oh, it's going across the top?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just to get my bearings here.
The pond is down here. So basically, with the landscaping in here, the planning board suggested that we make an appearance here to let you know what we're doing. There are going to be some elimination of parking spaces in this, but we're going to be making them up in another area. But basically what they want is the landscaping and the portico.
I know where the original portico is. It's out behind my property, the old teepee that used to be there.
Was ours?
Yeah. So really, you're not affecting any parking, or are you?
You eliminating parking
He is
spaces?
eliminating, but rebuilding it somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
So we are, basically, right now, none of this exists. It's all parking. So we're adding the portico share, so the cars can pull in, drive underneath, unload, adding this whole landscape. So we're moving the handicap spots, we're pushing them out, and there'll be a path for them. Eliminating some spaces here, keeping all of them, and then we added a portion of spaces here there is a loss of 12 spaces. However, we're also reducing capacity for...
If you've done the math? If you've done the math for the spaces?
Based on the square footage.
Tables and employees and...
So we're adding the yellow spaces. I believe we're going to be shy 10.
Shy of what's required, or?
Shy is what's there right now.
Oh, shy is what's there right now.
They are reducing the capacity.
Well, that's my question. When you've now reduced your capacity, do you comply? Are you within the guidelines for the requirements for the parking? I understand you're reducing it, but you're reducing capacity, but how does that relate to?
I don't know the current code, and I don't know if they were ever in compliance prior to us.
It has to do with seating and employees. I don't have it in front of me, though.
I do.
The old, before we bought it, it was over 500 people in
Capacity.
But we're not even going to be close to that. So I don't know either, but I just know like what it used to be.
Yeah. I'm just...
They used to have two functions in the restaurant at the same time.
Yeah.
So we don't have any of that early one function.
Yeah, it's just that the code just calls it out in a formula, and I was just curious if anybody had done the math in the formula, that's all. Do you have that in front of you?
Do you happen to know what you're reducing the capacity from and then to?
Yeah, so it's basically going from 3 function spaces, which the capacity was, the total capacity for the building was 525.
It was 525, it was 480 on that, what was 3 rooms, we're making 1 room.
Right, so we're looking to do a total capacity for the function space of 300, restaurant staying the same, and I believe that capacity, I have to pull it, but I think it's 70 or 80 is their capacity,
So even if we go on 80 and you're at 300, then you're reducing by 145 capacity. And I don't think that you're gonna have any more employees than they would have if you're reducing.
No.
Yeah, I know,
and
that
they
was
may
like a
not-
funny thing to say, like the capacity, you're not gonna have more employees for the capacity.
no, we'd have less.
I have the old one, I just didn't.
It may not have been compliant originally. I'm just asking if anybody did the math, that's all.
I didn't. I know there is a formula, I didn't do it. We just were sort of looking at what was there, the changes we're making, minus the new capacity, our new capacity, what we're looking for. And then, so we lost 12 spaces.
Do you know how many, Mr. Weber, do you know how many parking spaces are there currently before we remove the 12?
Yes, currently right now we are...
Let's just do the math.
164.
164, and we're taking 12 out.
10.
Are you taking 10 out?
I'm sorry, what's the
You're
question?
taking 10 parking spaces out? Like, once it's all said and done, you'll have 10 less?
That's going to be 10, yeah. We're going from 164 to 150.
So we need 1 space for each 2 employees. How many employees?
For an average function, what do you think?
Functions, I mean, 10.
10 on our side and then in the restaurant? About the same 10.
Is there anything other than?
So
the bylaw.
If you
yeah,
had
there you go.
20. So say 20 to 25 max.
10 to 12.
So 2 for each space, so let's just call it 26 for an even number, because it's 2 for each.
Yep.
1 space for each 2 employees.
Right.
13 for that, so
Then it's tables,
minus
right?
13. And then you have
1 space for every 2,
space.
for 2 patrons.
yeah.
Right, so you're looking at a total of 370 total people. Like, if you were maxed out with a fire marshal had to come in and
Let's
say,
say 400.
you guys are over capacity, you're at 3. Well, let's not round up, let's get the actual number, 370? Because you said 300 in the function and then 70 in the restaurant?
Check on the
But the
restaurant. I
formula is
don't
by
have
table and by seating capacity.
Okay.
Right, so if it's a 6-person table, then it would be 1, so it would be 3 seats. I mean, 3 parking spots, correct?
Yeah, and I think, again, that the formula isn't one for each.
So then,
It's-
but we would totally that would be a higher number.
Yeah, right.
So that's why I was saying at 400, if you divided that in half, you'd be at 200 parking spots, and how many do you have?
154.
Oh.
That's what I'm
That's
saying.
still way over that, got it. That's still way over though, because you're probably not, you're gonna, at a function, you get 5 people at a table, 6 people at a 10.
Yeah,
So, and then in the restaurant,
yeah, like I said, I don't,
Average is 4.
so 30 tables and 4,
120,
so
120.
2, okay. 120 plus the 13. I think you have plenty, because it put them at like 135, 140.
I'm not saying it wasn't enough, I'm just
No,
asking.
we're
if
doing the math.
anybody
Good
did the
math.
yeah.
We're doing the math.
Somebody needs to, I guess.
The reason why we're doing this, right, and it's amazing that in my time on this board how diligent we are about parking spaces, but we have been very diligent to other businesses, so we just have to hold everybody to the same
Totally.
standard. So
It's totally-
it sounds almost, trivial to be
No.
doing this, but
We have other venues, so it's not trivial. 300 is our max capacity, our average wedding, and for all of the bookings so far, we're at 150, about 150 is the average wedding, plus bridal parties, take buses, so you don't have those extra cars. So it's good to know the math and the absolute maximum, but the chances of us hitting it are
Yeah,
so
the
slim.
actual occupancy really doesn't enter into the formula, it's strictly
Very
by,
rarely, yeah.
by tables
Right.
and seats
Yeah.
and employees.
Totally.
I have the old numbers if you were interested in looking at.
And, Mr. Webber, you're adding parking spots, so we're taking away 10, but how many are you adding?
no,
he's
they
in the
have
net
14.
and
They're
loss.
pretty
All right, my bad, sorry.
154
All the
is
numbers.
154 is all in.
Okay.
Okay. How many square feet is the building? Do you know?
Yeah, that would be really tough to figure.
Well, it says one
So many
space
nooks and crannies.
per 100 square feet, so
Yeah.
that might be the easiest math to do.
But
Just to
I-
move the decimal point over 2
I don't
points.
know if that's for retail, I don't know
It
that,
was industrial or retail, right?
yeah, that's for retail, that isn't for restaurants.
Goes by square
Okay.
footage of the retail space as opposed to seating capacity.
Yeah, restaurants go by seating capacity.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
We have that one.
It would be,
I think I'm looking at 135, 140 for the capacity she's stating, on the highest numbers.
well, I mean, it comes to tables and seats. And of course, that fluctuates because you could bring out more chairs. I mean, the whole thing's kind of nebulous in terms of,
Right.
or fluid, I should say. It's probably adequate. I would have liked to have seen the number, but I'm not going to get crazy about it. But
We're pretty restrictive, obviously, with the font.
yes, right. No, I understand. And it's existing. It isn't new occupancy.
Since like what, 1950?
I mean,
Tommy Schindler's grandparents owned that,
when
the
it,
old Montponset.
when it was the hotel.
Yeah, when it was the hotel,
Before, right.
at the time of the fire.
It's a good property.
So you,
Which,
okay.
there was a couple sites.
308.
Well, the big one.
These spaces, by our bylaws, allows 308 people in the building.
So then it would be,
That's all I'm saying.
got it.
And they're talking 300 occupancy,
So
right?
I'm a little off.
Just take that number, multiply it times 2, because everything in here is 1 space per 2. Employees, 2 seats. So it's 308. So I mean, if you can make the occupancy less than 308 people, then the given spaces that you have line up with the bylaws. That's all I'm saying. Math is
308 total between the functional and the restaurant.
And the employees.
yeah, it's 1 space per 2 employees, 1 space per 2 seats.
Okay, yeah, that's.
So if we have 154 spaces, multiply that times 2. 308.
Is that what we were talking? 300?
No, one.
Just 300 for the function side, not including the restaurant.
Which is really too bad because, I mean, when you drive by there, you're not, I mean, even when you're packed, you're not begging for parking spots.
No.
So I would hate to have this hold up.
And the board can waive any requirement in any event or alter. to your point, and I always come back to it, Walmart has 1,000 parking spots. And when was the last time you saw 1,000 cars out there?
Not even during the car show.
Yeah, right.
But also, if this had a higher capacity at 525 and they had 164
It wasn't
spaces,
compliant.
It wasn't
It was
compliant,
way
right.
out of compliance.
And to your point, I think I had kind of heard it about as some kind of grandfathered in type of thing.
And it was pre-existing non-conforming. Like I said, it was just an
It would be
exercise.
not-
I
I
was just
mean,
curious how close.
It's something
we
to
were.
discuss.
Yeah.
You know?
We just looked at it like the old one was 525 and we're dropping it by 150 people basically.
Yeah.
If anything, you're becoming more
And it
compliant than you were.
hasn't been a
Right
problem.
out here.
Nope.
I'm good with it. I was just curious if the map.
Gets in the way all the time.
Those are the only two changes, correct?
We're
You're adding-
doing significant upgrades inside, but the building inspector had no issue with it. It was really just because we're adding a little structural piece.
Yeah,
on
we're only
portico.
concerned with anything that happens on the
Yeah.
site,
I think
not
it's gonna look
internal.
gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, the landscape plan is magnificent.
You'll probably get a lot more brides that way too.
The bookings so far have been great, just on the renderings.
Well, you've got a spectacular venue
I
out
know.
there, with the- especially in the, you know, in season, if you will.
Yeah,
With the pond,
it's beautiful even now.
yeah.
I also
The sunsets are amazing.
am, I was there, I have a poem joke, but I'll leave it alone because we're on record. Do we have, is there a way that because they're not bringing a full site plan review in front of us or required to do so, so is it really our requirement to identify the parking space issue for those?
Not really. Like I said, I was just curious how it worked in compliance. When you have pre-existing non-conforming, you're usually pretty good until you actually change something.
Right.
And then you can apply or not apply or what have you. I don't think that in this particular instance it's an issue. I'm sorry I brought it up at this point, but I was just curious if anybody did the math.
I'm not. I think it was good that you brought it up because we brought it up, like Brendan said, with everybody else.
Yeah.
And if we don't bring it up, then we look bad.
Well, consistency is the heart of it all.
But I think the caveat here is that you're not coming in for a full site plan review for some new structure
Right,
that's
just a
adding or
modification.
subtract. It's, you're just saying, hey, listen, we're adding to the landscaping and a little offshoot, and the building inspector asked you to come here. If anything, you're reducing the occupancy, which is lining you up even more so with something that wasn't in compliance. So, for the sake of
Yeah,
time,
it's just a modification.
can I make a motion that we approve this recommendation?
Absolutely.
I'll second it, and I'm strict.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to wait so long.
That was interesting. The whole thing before us.
Yeah.
Well, there's elections in a few months. You can come on up and spend all your time up here.
Oh, you get to take that home with you.
Actually, you lucked out because we had a hearing canceled that would have taken equally as long as the one you just endured.
See you, Joe.
Longer. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Very much so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Yeah, where are we?
That's exciting.
I hate to be the math guy, but seems like when you're doing
Modification?
Next item up is a
you're not even
modification to site plan 22,
You missed a zero, is what it was.
SPR 232,
dividing it.
Hasai and Esrella, sign permit application.
Yeah.
I think we have a copy of the sign someplace, which is identical to the sign that's on the town green.
Was a location put on the site plan where the sign was going as was requested by the board?
Yeah, I'm looking
I
for
don't know
that.
how well it's going to show up because the original was on, it was highlighted, so when I made copies it didn't show, but it's on there.
Where is it in the book, Danielle?
Discussion. Should be, yep, it should be.
That's the sign, right? It's identical to the one that's on
Yeah.
Hemlock, right?
I'm confident he conforms over there. There's so much frontage. That's probably got the largest frontage. That one parcel has the largest frontage in town.
That's his application right there.
But how many signs is it that
One per
per?
150 feet.
So there's already another large sign there, though, for Rodney's, which doesn't have a permit, and then there's one for Rockland Trust, and then there's one for the whole building. So there's already 1, 2, 3, did I say? So including the Kosire, it would be 4. So they would need to have 600 feet of frontage in order to have that. And I don't think they have 6. Do we have that site plan or that folder here?
I don't have it.
Rodney's never came here, just so that you're, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but it's true. So like, maybe they could share a sign or work something out and present that further, because there already are 3 large signs on that property. Danielle, do you have that? I'm sorry, did
Now, when you say the property, you're talking about as high as 150 feet that he's on, or are you talking about all the way down to the bank?
The entire parcel.
The entire parcel, it's, what'd you say, 600?
Because it's all
It would have to
one
be
parcel.
Oh, it would have to.
Yeah, I gotta verify that, but that's my recollection, it was one per.
I have it right now.
1 per 150.
Let me find the sign section and then decorate, and then that one particular.
Is Rodney still in business?
I don't know if anybody's in there.
I don't know, I don't do takeout.
I never see it open.
I thought it was Rodney's anymore.
If I go out, or I eat it. Takeout.
We have more pages on signs than any other single item.
In the universe.
It just goes on, it's endless.
I think it was all in good. Which number is it? Do you remember?
167, I want to say 7, but I don't think that's it.
It's marijuana.
Yeah.
Might make these meetings go by faster. Bad joke? Got it.
Well, we were on a pretty good.
No, we're cruising. Oh, yeah, the previous ones, it was like, and we're open and we're closed.
Yeah.
Oh, here we are. Signs, permits. We just read it a couple meetings ago. We're a little off on.
Is the only thing that would get in the way of an approval is the square footage requirement?
30 square feet per side for, for one sign.
Oh, I'm sorry, the frontage.
Yeah, it depends on how you apply.
And if there's, well, I keep throwing out 600, but
Yep.
if there's a rather large amount, is it one sign per every 150 feet, or is it,
I'm trying to remember, it's been so long since I've
I'm
done
gonna
it.
read it as soon as I find it.
I have to keep sorting out between the zoning I'm enforcing and the zoning I sort of kind of remember.
Sorry, freestanding sign. Such sign shall have no more than 2 faces. The area of each face shall not exceed 30 square feet. A lot with frontage of 300 feet or more may have 2 such signs, not less than 175 feet apart. And they have 3. One isn't permitted.
the one by Rockland, or the one by,
Rodney's.
But
And then
anything-
Rockland, and then the main one for the whole place is 2.
but that's beyond the 300 feet or 100 and...
Just want me to read it again?
Yeah,
Just-
please, what is it again? What section is it again?
It's
One-
167-13.
13.
E 3C.
Height.
A lot with a frontage of 300 feet or more may have 2 such signs, not less than 175 feet apart.
How much is the frontage of that whole space?
we
From
don't-
Rockland all the
Well,
way?
I think we looked at it and it was like 400, or like somewhere in that range.
No,
Doesn't that sound right?
it's got to be a lot because it starts at the fire station.
Right.
and
From
goes
Rockland
to the car wash.
Yeah, it's gotta be more than 400
Wasn't it 456 or, like, I forget, it's in the fours.
So,
I mean, anything that's there is pre-existing non-conforming in any event, but
It's 2 signs per lot, 175 feet apart.
And we're going by a Rodney sign that should just be pulled out of the ground
Well,
anyway.
one of them's the Rockland Trust sign.
Yeah, but that's more than
And then-
175 feet away.
And then the main one for the 416 itself,
Yeah.
so that's the two signs.
Which is,
Rodney's isn't legal.
Anything, well, it's pre-existing non-conforming, because there was a sign there originally, he just changed it.
Rodney's?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, well, he had the big sign up there, and then there was
I
another
walk
one
by
out
it
front.
every day, I was not there.
No?
No. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
It,
I remember another sign.
It's like 4x4.
Well, he had the pedestal sign, that was with a clock on it that nobody could read the numbers on. Do you remember that? Next to the pizza shop? when the
You mean
pizza
like
shop-
when it was, what was his name?
Yeah, him. I can't remember his name either. How quickly everybody forgets him.
I remember
where
his
was the
face.
Hoppy sign too? That's gotta have been in there somewhere.
Yeah, that was right out front. Hoppy's
The
gas
gas
station.
station?
I don't remember that at all.
The gas station next to the car wash?
I don't remember that at all.
There's a big leak in the gas tank, was just leaking
Oh, yeah,
gasoline.
everywhere. Hoppy's gas. Yeah.
Hoppy's gas, it was green and white.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it ended up being,
Why
a-
they won't do a site plan review.
it ended up being a hazardous waste site for a long time.
But
Those trees weren't cut down, they all died. Gas.
We need to look at a site plan, but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't conform. Any business that's not there, any reference to it on a sign is supposed to be taken off too. I noticed Angler's Kitchen, his letters are still up on his sign over next to,
how many years has that been now?
yeah, exactly. But that's a zoning issue, it isn't a planning board issue.
Yeah, yeah. You have enough of that, I don't want to take on anymore.
What do we want to do? We want to hold off? I mean, he could ask for a special permit, I suppose.
Well,
I think,
Maybe you could talk to some of the people and, I don't know, I mean, like, it's the square footage and the amount of the sign, so it would have to be, would it be a variance or would it be a special permit?
a multi-business sign, I think, can be 40 square feet.
So how many square feet is the
But
one?
check me, because like I said, it's been so long. 30 I was comfortable with, 40, I think it jumps to 40 square feet for a multi-directional sign.
but either way, the size of the sign isn't.
Isn't the issue, it's the placement, yeah, and I agree.
4 by 10, I mean, that's a monster sign.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's more just.
No, it's the amount.
713.
That's what you said, yeah.
I agree, you're right.
Special events, for sale, rent or lease, wall signs, window signs, used by district, that's different.
It doesn't matter. To Brendan's point, the size of the sign, it's definitely not the issue.
Right, it's the frontage.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking of like a solution of adding it to one of the
The
other
other signs,
signs.
no, I know where you were going. I don't know that,
I don't know if that serves his purpose.
yeah,
for
yeah,
what he
that-
needs.
that's,
Can't add it to Rodney's sign.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, no,
like
I
ridiculous.
meant the main one, like maybe, like the one like where Tika's is and everything, like maybe
Yeah.
having it added into that.
it would be so small and so far away.
And so far away too.
Yeah, so far away, he's not even in that building.
I don't see that
I
helping.
hate those.
Bringing
signs.
Matt Ellis back.
And I'd hate like to see some kind
Bringing
of
the issue
mobile
Matt
sign
Ellis
up
had
there.
back,
That would look
What's that?
dumb.
the sign size at the industrial park.
Oh,
You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
Uh-uh. I would have figured you'd remember that.
I know the guy across the street put up a sign that I had to make him change.
Oh?
Can we extend this
Yeah,
to the
let's,
next meeting?
to the next meeting for more information.
Let's do
yeah.
that. If
Yeah.
we're gonna, yeah.
I mean, if it,
That's,
again,
that's the smart
if
move.
it's just math, maybe there's a way that the math is gonna prove out to make sense.
That's,
I agree.
that's a smart move.
Does that need a motion?
Yes.
Make a motion that we
Continue it to.
continue the modification to site plan 22 SPR 232 for the Nazarella sign permit application so that we can do our due diligence and a little bit more research to the next meeting, which is December 7th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Next item, discussion, action to be taken, continued hearing, Hilda Lane, Form C application for approval of definitive plan, subdivision modification amendment to amendment. Okay, that sounds like a handful.
Do we need to sign it?
No, apparently not. They've asked for a 60-day extension. Do we have?
Yeah, we just need to sign.
Before we move forward with that, I'm sorry, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add something on that Nazarella sign if I could.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I speak out of turn. Chairman?
If I can stand up for a minute, get the old joints oiled up here. When I went to the voting board meeting, Mr. Nazarella
I don't know how to.
excused himself from the meeting.
Touch the top.
This good? Okay. And the subject came up about signage, and he said, I'm just gonna have one little sign on this overhang where I'm hanging my plants. That was his committal at that point. Since then, and I've discussed this with your interim building inspector, Mr. Nazarella now has put up a sign in his old establishment. Nazarella's a half a mile down the road. The sign that he has put it on is an illegal sign. Secondly, your bylaws will not allow him to put a sign on property he doesn't own to advertise his business. And that has been brought about because the cannabis that took over the old Santana Bank put out a tripod out on the corner saying we're open, and that's an illegal sign. Okay? So, and then when Mr. Nazarella was going for his permit, he said he was putting up a temporary greenhouse. When are we allowing businesses in this town to operate out of temporary headquarters, and now we want to put up a bigger sign? All right? I think we have a couple of other things to discuss with Mr. Nazarella. That's my feeling.
Thank you. All enforcement issues is what you're talking about, which would be the zoning enforcement officer.
And I've talked to the zoning enforcement guy already, and he's supposed to be talking to Mr. Nazarella. So we'll see. Thank you, people.
All right.
No, thank you.
Very much.
Yep.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Danielle, can I, so on that, it was, what date does the 60 days extend from?
I think 10/19.
Yeah, it says, yeah,
Yeah.
10/19.
All right, I was just confused because of the 10/24 when he signed it, so I didn't
No,
look
he
back.
took a couple days to get it back
Yeah.
to me.
I just wanted to make sure it
Yeah.
wasn't,
No,
okay.
10/19.
Thank you.
Next up, trying to move this along a little quicker, we have bills. Express newspaper ad, 14,892 for $90. Notice of public hearing advertisement for 265, 266 Monpont Street. WB Mason invoice number 241987868. The 6772 office supplies, WB Mason's invoice 24205, that would be 05, 2090. The 27003 bookshelf, Pitney Bowes Bank, Inc., reserve account number 19491331 for postage, $100.
I'll move those all for payment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. Meeting minutes for October 19th, 2023. Has everyone had an opportunity to read them?
I have not. Can we continue that?
We can continue that because I have not read them either. So we need a motion for that?
I'll motion that the meeting minutes from October 19th, 2023 be moved to the meeting on December 7th, 2023.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can you guys just sign this extension for 314?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Do we need a motion that, or did we already talk about that earlier?
I don't believe it was mentioned.
Should we motion it, Jeff?
Yeah, we should motion it just to cover ourselves.
Oh, that's the...
For the bills, yeah.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was looking for the,
It gets punchy at this time.
I was looking for the,
You got the extension.
Thanks.
Yep.
A motion that petition number 991 for 314 Plymouth Street, we sign an extension for 30 days.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Mail and correspondence, Town of Pembroke Planning Board subdivision rescission number 1801 Dominic Way. Town of Pembroke Zoning Board of Appeals decision letter for 21 Shepherd Ave. Middleborough Planning Board notice of public hearing for a retreat lot special permit plan on Benson Street. Next scheduled meeting is December 7th, 2023.
Is there a reason?
Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, good. Unanimous. Thank you all very much.